Say welcome to the show, Knives Monroe, to the Trent Knox Show, and I'm here this time to interview. So hopefully we don't derail too far into like Illuminati and other different crazy stuff this go around. But I was talking to you right before we got onto the show, and you said you got a new setup going on. So tell the listeners, viewers, and everybody about your new production workflow.
So I have one camera that I'm using as a webcam. It's really overkill. I have a Sennheiser microphone that's attached to a boom pole that is linked into another camera that I'm using over here to
Oh
record.
wow.
Yeah, so I got lights. It's all happening right now. So it's quite insane. So it's really cool. So I have redundancy. I'm recording so I can chop up my own clips. You're doing that so you can chop up your own clips as
Yeah.
well. So it's amazing. We're you and I are just wizards at this shit.
I've heard them say you're like a Casey Neistat. How do you feel about that compliment?
It reminds me of the first time I heard it, which was back in like 2016, and I didn't know who he was. And my reaction was, "Who is she? I've never heard of her." And then I YouTubed Casey and was like, "Wow, where has this person been my entire life?" So when I hear that, when people give me that compliment today, I don't understand it. I don't understand why someone would. I don't see it at all. But it is a huge compliment. It just means I'm maybe doing something right.
Yeah, what you just did there gave me a very Casey Neistat aesthetic. Pivoting the camera real
Yeah.
quickly to what you do behind the scenes. That's really cool. Anyway, I wanted to invite you onto the show to talk about um, positioning and selling client services. So, talk to me about how you um, approach selling client services.
Well, I'm pretty decent, I think, at marketing myself. I think most videographers and one person businesses tend to be introverts. That's just what I've gathered from my experience. I think I'm an antisocial extrovert, and I'm able to make content that I can chop up, put it on the multi distribution platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, put the written word version on LinkedIn, etc. And what that's able to do is create inbound leads. People say, "Hey, I need something like that for me. Is this guy open for business?" And then they'll reach out to me. So that's how I've accumulated the majority of my business is from inbound leads.
So, if you're a videographer today, how important is it to have a YouTube channel?
It depends. I don't think just having a YouTube channel is like the calling card for success. It depends how active you're going to be on that platform. For instance, if you're a videographer, it would behoove you to have a portfolio. YouTube could be that. Vimeo could be that. Your website should be that. So it's important to have a presence, but not everybody is an avatar. Not everybody can be a talking head, could be a personality, is a storyteller. But I think YouTube is a great place to, at the very least, showcase your work.
Hmm. So you said website. I feel like a lot of content creators don't create brand, and I think you're diverse in that way. What made you, start to deplatform and create your own brand?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Um, it's all about autonomy and ownership. And the truth is, you always hear these entrepreneurs say, "Man, Facebook fucked me. They changed their algorithm. Now I don't have like the same reach organically as blah blah blah." Or TikTok, China's gonna whatever. They're gonna end TikTok. And it's like I hear these things, and I think the solution to those problems is to deplatform and to put them on your website. That's something that you can own in perpetuity, right?
Hmm.
There's an argument to be made whether or not you own your RSS feed. It still goes to the hosting service, right? So, but by and large, you own your website. You own your whatever your pillar content comes from. For me, that's podcasting. I want to be able to own that too.
Yeah. So platforms are a good way to market your niche. How important is it for videographers to have a niche of their own?
Man, I think it's important not just for videographers to have their own niche, but for every small business, solopreneur, one person business to know and identify who their niche is.
Yeah.
I've only recently discovered that I think there's a Venn diagram sort of overlap between discovering who your niche is by what your obsessions are and what you tend to like, other people will like as well, right? That overlap, I think, is your niche. So being able to identify that, if you're a videographer and you don't know who that is, um, then who are you talking to? Then whose problems are you solving? Then where are you just speaking into the void? I've been guilty of that, of spraying and praying, as they say, this little motion of spraying and praying. I've been guilty of that. So I only discovered and really honed in on my niche just this year, 2023, and it's yielded positive results so far, and it helps me understand whose problems I'm trying to solve and the impact that I'm trying to have in the marketplace.
Yeah, and you know, the imagery, if you're not watching the video, is interesting because I'm seeing it both ways. There's like the more military sense of using the word spray and pray, and there's also like the water hose sense of spraying and praying and hoping that your crops grow into fruitful, you know, harvests that you can then redistribute and sell at a later date. But let's talk to, I guess this isn't really my niche and I don't think it's your niche, but I find it's something I've done work in, and maybe it's something that someone who's a listener can resonate with. But a big component of the videography space and a lot of opportunity is in a few different categories. That's like real estate, fitness, and I would say like brick and mortar sort of kind of restaurants and whatnot. Do you think that it's important to kind of like be specific to what you work on, or do you think that videographers should like do what they can to survive? What's your viewpoint on that?
Man, you are firing on all cylinders today. Like this is a great question. I think it depends on the creator timeline, like where you are in the evolutionary chart as a creator, on what you should be doing. I went backwards. I started making films, making short films, making web series, and then I started making music videos for money. And then 15 years, 16 years into my career, I started doing weddings. Most people start off doing weddings. So it depends on the timeline of your career, right? Eventually, I think ideally, someone gets out of school, they start filming quinceañeras, they start filming weddings, they start working at their local car wash. They maybe they're lucky and they break into we have a mutual friend, Alan, who's lucky enough to be working in the dental niche, right? Some
Hmm.
people, they work in the automotive industry. That becomes like the thing that they love to do, they're obsessed about, and then they have that overlap where that's the community that they serve, that's the marketplace that they serve. So it really depends where you are in the timeline. I think we all kind of break our teeth getting started, getting those reps in by doing weddings and things of that nature. But hopefully, after you've made it, a few years, you know what you like. More importantly, you know what you don't like, and you know what you're best at. So I do think there needs to be a sprinkle of self awareness of what do you like to do, what are you best at, and hopefully it pays well.
Yeah, shout out to our homie Alan Conception on Instagram, I believe, and yeah, he embodies the turn of phrase, get in where you fit in. And it's funny because I kind of like it's a very Florida thing, and he's got some really good clients out there in Florida that I've shot with him, working with, and it's interesting you say that it's kind of you've kind of gotten into more the creative space with filmmaking, and then longer into your career you got into some of the things that you might look at as starting opportunities like wedding videography, event videography, etc. And I think that the conversation definitely starts from videography because that's how we kind of connected initially. Now, I think that we'll eventually get into a deeper conversation about business in general as we go along in this podcast. But if you listen this far, much appreciated. Once again, this is Knives Monroe. He is the CEO, founder, creative genius, everything behind Indie Darlings, as you can see in his backdrop there. look at indie darlings. And
Sir,
yeah, so what is the inspiration behind indie darlings today?
I wrote a manifesto and it's going to be available on our website very soon. I'm in the re-editing phase because I want it to be on one page. So we're working with designers to be able to fit it on one page so it could be a poster in somebody's room. And that manifesto is really about embracing your obscurity. And it's really about understanding that indie darlings, independent creatives, indie videographers, one person businesses, indie artists, that we aren't second class citizens. We are the backbone of the creative community, right? So indie darlings really getting clear on that. Claire and I, my wife, who's my business partner as well with indie darlings, the second brain of this business, we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary this month for indie darlings. Got the tattoo of it right here. She has a tattoo of it as well on her collarbone. And 4 years in, I wish we were where we are today 4 years ago, because where it would be today would just be outstanding. But I think it has a lot to do with me focusing on the business full time, as opposed for it being a side hustle for the past 4 years, which is what it's been because I've been juggling multiple full-time jobs at the same time. So being able to have that free time to really hone in on our mission, our values, our goals, our purpose, why we're here, and the impact that we set to make, because I have that time, I've been able to really focus and hone in on that. So hopefully now more than ever, that kind of defines what Indie Darlings is, was, and can be. And be on the lookout. Visit indiedarlings.net to check out our manifesto. It'll be a free PDF that people can just download and do whatever they want with.
Well, I'm going to wipe the crust out of my eyes as I was listening to you. I was thinking about something we've been talking about recently behind the scenes, about building the airplane while it's flying. And I feel like a lot of creators at this stage, even we're saying like, what is the importance of building brand, are coming to this realization that they don't have it all figured out. So talk to about the process of figuring it out.
Yeah, making it up as you're going along, pivoting. I think that's
Yeah.
how I know that I might actually be an entrepreneur. That's always been a word that I've kind of cringed at and thought maybe that's not me, because I've always been an employee. I've always been working for somebody else, building and designing another corporation or organization's dreams and visions. So I never felt comfortable calling myself an entrepreneur. And who knows how long I can do this before I go back to the 9 to 5 life. But building the plane as you're flying it, a lot of pivoting, a lot of understanding the marketplace, a lot of figuring it out in real time. I recently made a video called, I've been a videographer for 20 years and here's what I've learned, something like that. And somebody reached out to me, I won't say who, and they've been on my podcast, and they said, "Hey, Knives, can I be really blunt with you?" And I said, "Of course, I welcome this." I got this tingling sensation. I was like, what are they going to say? Oh my goodness. Did I offend them somehow? What did I do? And she said, "You've been a videographer for 20 years. Shouldn't you have more to show for it?" And I thought, God damn. And I told her, I agree. I should have a lot more to show for it, but it all depends on what you gauge the merit of success as.
Mm-hmm.
I pay my mortgage with art money. I have 2 lovely kids, 2 lovely dogs. I'm supporting my family. I look at that as a success. I'm able to pay my mortgage through client work, through my business. I look at that as a success. I think what she meant was, shouldn't you have more subscribers and more like views on YouTube? Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what she
Mm-hmm.
meant. And it took a whole career. It took me building the plane as I'm flying it to understand, at least in my opinion, that YouTube is the end game, not the calling
Mm-hmm.
card for success. And I always thought it was the calling card. Flash back to 2016 or 17, I was filming a daily vlog, which was the thing of the time. And eventually that vlog culminated to me meeting Dakota Meyer, who is an entrepreneur, businessman, one person business as well. And my tenure with Dakota has been well documented. And I thought, oh, that was the whole purpose of me doing a daily vlog, was to get put on. Peace out, YouTube. And I peaced out and I left. And then I worked for 6 years or however long. and looked up and realized, man, I just abandoned my YouTube. So that right there is another. I think that's what she meant when she was like, "Shouldn't you have more to show for it after these 20 years?" Well, I've been able to go from amateur to pro. I worked for the first 15 years of my career for free. You know, also the 2003 dreams at the time are different than what the 2023 dreams of your modern entrepreneur is today. So there's been a lot of pivoting. There's been a lot of failure. There's been a lot of learning on the go, learning on the fly, and adapting, rebuilding, reclaiming, redesigning. And I think that's just part of the process on a long enough timeline. I
Mhm.
didn't really start focusing 100% on my business till only a few months ago. I
Mhm.
didn't start focusing 100% on building my YouTube uh, persona or YouTube, just becoming prolific on that platform. I didn't start really going full tilt on that until January 2023 when I
Mhm.
dropped that Evanescence video essay. And that's when I
Mhm.
started taking the platform very seriously. So um, I wish I knew then what I know now, but I think every entrepreneur feels that way, right? So it's just
Mhm.
part of the process. You have to be okay with it. You have to understand that you're not going to have all the answers. I'm obsessed with learning. I'm obsessed with systems. I'm obsessed with pivoting. I'm obsessed with doing the best with what you have with the answers that you have available at the time. Do what you can with what you have wherever you are. I'm very big on that. And so yeah, shout out to her. I won't say her name just because I don't know if she's comfortable with me saying that. But it was really startling in a good way, and it really inspired a great conversation. And I felt the same way when she was like, "Shouldn't you be further along?" And yeah, absolutely, I should be further along. But how fast can we grow in the next 6 9 months? It's going to be really interesting to see because I think some people who start YouTube, they haven't built that 20-year career yet. They haven't built it. And then when they
Mhm.
get on the platform, maybe it's a little easier for them. I hope.
You know, I was listening to your story and I was thinking about a sort of a reference because I think Mr. Beast definitely made a very similar statement when he was
Mm,
on Lex Friedman's podcast
mm,
in regard to in regard to YouTube being the end goal versus the Hollywood model of distribution. Now, what I kind of am challenged with in that, and I come from also, this, and all the viewers and listeners know this. I come from the live streamer world. That's where my foundation was built as far as content goes, and a lot of content creators, and I mean even kind of like using the word already before I throw the hook in, is that I'm telegraphing this a little bit, but Twitch streamers consider themselves streamers. They don't consider themselves content creators necessarily because they don't want to. Um, what is the word I'm looking for? Alienize? That's not the word.
alienate.
Alienate. Alienate their audience because they believe their audience sees them as only a Twitch streamer, not bigger as a content creator, someone who's multi-platform.
Hmm.
What do you think the fight is there, and how what's the 90 this 10 that 80-20 60-40 on what you are as a creative?
Oh man, this is where you ask anybody get this, they'll give you a different answer. But if you ask me, I'm going to point to this expression that I coined, and I call it the post cinema singularity. Where I think, what is the difference between a 6 second Vine, a 10-second TikTok, a 30-second commercial, a 5 minute short film, a movie on Netflix, a movie that was shot on celluloid that's projected on a silver screen? What's the difference between that and a Twitch streamer and a YouTube video? And the truth is, I don't think there is a difference. I think it's all one now. And I think they're all viewed on a screen. I call it the post cinema singularity. So I just think that they're hung up on identity politics, right? I just think that's what it is. You could be a professional, you could be a housewife, and you're a professional Instagram influencer now. But do you call yourself a reeler? I'm a reeler instead of a filmmaker, instead of a content creator, because I
Mm-hmm.
do reels. No, you're not going to say that. It's all ubiquitous now. It's all one. So whether if you're an Instagram influencer making content, a Twitch streamer making content, a commercial videographer making content, we're all creators, we're all designers, we're all music makers, we're all dreamers of the dream.
Mm. Yeah, it does seem interesting when you put your, like, now it's sort of, it's, I don't want to say it's binary because but I want to put it in a binary kind of example of, you have your producer hat that you put on, and that's when you're creating, you're making things. And then you have your consumer hat that you put on when you're looking out to see what kind of content you can create. You have to obviously look at the platforms, see what they permit you to do. The thing that came to mind obviously was back in the day when you posted a horizontal video on Instagram and you couldn't rotate the screen for it to go full screen. I think that's been resolved now, but like, I guess I'm going to segue away from that and go back to my question I had in my mind. You're a podcaster, right?
Yes.
How important is podcasting at this stage as a content creator? What emphasis do you put on podcasting?
That's a great question. So I'm the type of creator that is also a business person. What I'm doing is a business. And so I believe that you need a central pillar around your business, and everything around it kind of comes from this nucleus. For some person, that could be a live stream. For some people, that could be an email newsletter. For some people, that's their YouTube channel. For me, it's my podcast. That is
Mm.
my main pillar. And the leaves and the branches that fall from underneath that main tree of content are going to stem from that podcast. Like right now, I'm recording this with you
Mm-hmm.
through StreamYard. I have the FS5 here for that. I also have the A7S3 over here on the side that's probably going to chop these things up and put them on Reels, Shorts, TikToks, maybe even a sound bite, that maybe even my own podcast. I mean, I don't know yet, but the point is I'm capturing it. I'm capturing the podcast. So to me, I think a podcast, and this is what I believe because that's my main hub, that's my main pillar of content. I just think it's the most valuable thing that I can create. And I'm an orator, right? Like I'm a big communicator. So that's going to be something that has the least friction for me as a creator, and also yield the most positive ROI is a podcast, because I can talk to people. I can We can do this cross platforming with Trent Knox and Knives Monroe together. I can build relationships. We can then take these segments and put them out there on the internet for everybody to see and really add value in the culture and the marketplace. And it all funnels back to my RSS feed, my Spotify, my website. So if you're a business person and if you're an army of one or creator, an indie videographer, whatever you are, you have to ask yourself, like, how valuable is that to you? You know, I think it's very valuable, and I think it's lucrative. And on a long enough timeline, it's going to pay off.
Published content is very public, and it is the calling card for inbound leads, and maybe just people that you want to connect with, or your Tinder profile. It doesn't really matter. You're creating content to reach people, I would presume, right? um we've been talking. I've been workshopping ideas through you in a lot of different ways. um
And
and
you.
I really do appreciate that,
Yeah.
because I'm not sure I know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to, like everyone else, try to build the airplane while it's flying as well. So I just
I
wanted to
think we
resonate there.
ideate through each other mutually, right? Like
Yeah,
that's how we ideate, that's how we incubate. And Mr. Beast also talks about having that group of friends that they were able to
yeah,
workshop YouTube videos together. And I feel like you and I are always in that sort of friction for sure. And iron sharpens iron.
yeah. I want to pull in actually something that you've said recently to me about, ideating in public, right? Um, you know, creating content that's maybe not as polished, but it develops into a package that's unique to you. So talk about, like, what does that take to do that?
It takes courage, it takes bravery. And I think if you really want to call yourself an artist, you have to have a degree of courage and bravery. um, solving your problems in public. I think as business owners and entrepreneurs, whether if you're a one-person business or if you have a 50-person organization, um, I do believe in the social proof, and I do believe in building trust on the internet at scale. If people can see this podcast and see what we're doing, that builds trust. That's social proof of wow, I want to reach out to Trent because what else can he offer me? What else can he do for me? Or I have this inquiry. Submit an inquiry to Trent Knox. That's value. He can help you with something. He can, maybe build a connection or a relationship or solve a problem. And we're doing that by creating content in public. And what's great is when you do that, and something clicks and something works, now you've created a system that you can build on, and people start fluttering in and saying, hey, how did you do that? Can you teach me that? When you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people that are asking you, hey, how did you do that? Now you have a product that you can sell people at a reasonable price that adds value in the marketplace. And you did that by building something in public. So I just think that's really valuable. And honestly, I'm starting to get my rocks off with that.
Yeah. So I think the thing I want to juxtapose is micro versus macro. Content publishing on platforms is your macro calling card. How do you develop a micro calling card when you're reaching out to potential clients, potential collaborators? I sent you my micro calling card, which you gave great feedback on, and I've created actually now a version that's longer and a version that's shorter for different types of personalities. So talk with me about this like one-on-one sort of, like, I guess, like how many times do you jab before you give a right hook?
I rarely do the right hook, man. You know me. Like, I want to give more than I take. I'll give you an anecdote, a recent example. There is a creator who hypes me up. I post a reel, I post a TikTok, I post a YouTube video. They're like, go get him knives, just on the sidelines. Really started hyping me up. And lo and behold, this guy is in my neighborhood. I didn't know that. So I took this guy out to lunch and paid for his meal. And that led to, hey, he mentioned he didn't have an ND filter. And I was like, hey, I have an ND filter. I'll just give it to you because it's collecting dust. Gave him an ND filter. Lo and behold, 2-3 days later, after building that rapport, building that relationship, giving more than I took, this guy Venmoed me $50. He didn't have to do that. And I think that was his way of saying thank you. I do want to say he's a fellow Mexican. So I think there's something Mexican about, like, I don't want to owe you anything. Right. Also, there's free cinematic LUTs for Canon and Sony that are available on my website. So I showed him, hey, if you're interested in LUTs, go to my website and you can get free LUTs. That's what I use for my YouTube videos. So I think he saw that I was giving him so much value that he had to do something in return. He Venmoed me $50. He didn't have to do that. I share that anecdote because that's my formula for leads, for relationships, is always giving more without anything in return, without any expectation. Truly, 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 truly. Now, when you're able to do that one-on-one with somebody on a film shoot, other people remember that. They remember how you conducted yourself. They remember your rates. They remember how you behaved. And people want to work around someone that is fun to be around, that is going to protect them, and that yields positive results. Your shit still has to be good, right? So I think word of mouth, as old-fashioned as that is, still works for me to this day. And in tandem with the content that I create, people have heard my podcast that led to business. People have seen my TikToks and that has led to business. Actual cash conversions where people are paying me to do what I do for me to do for them because they saw a TikTok of mine or they heard a podcast of mine. This has happened in the last year, and it's always really humbling and cool. So I think giving more than you ever expect to receive in return and creating an absurd amount of highly valuable content And some of my content is more valuable than others. Some of it is just like I check the boxes. We'll talk more about that later because I created a system that I want to share later. I call it the CES, the content effort scale. We'll talk about that later if we have time. But yeah, so I think giving more in public and giving more in private yields that in return. You get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I personally believe or think, I'm trying to think about this, that the majority of the work that I've gotten has been cold outreach to people that I didn't know. But I I don't really have a good way of remembering or tracking um what was based off of the content that I create. But right now I can really, I can for I've been I put this out in the ether that I've been mostly working B2B behind the scenes in the gaming and esports space with uh, technology providers who offer, fintech with Tipalti or advertising with Upplify or consulting with Newton X. Like, I put out that that's mostly what I do, but what I would like to do is work with more content creators and talk about ways that they can utilize the tools that I've been helping, build on the back end to increase their monetization of their content. And it was just like a not super high production value post that I published on LinkedIn, and I got 5 or 6 leads out of that, and they were all content creators, which is really bizarre because like I very much led with what I do now, like not what I want to do. And it was interesting to see the amount of content creators reach out saying, I'm just getting started, but I could really use a little help and guidance. And I don't know how to really maybe I can ask you this and maybe you can give me some advice on this. Is I don't know how to workshop this where it's like, yeah, I've been able to be in the room with some really big content creators and get some ideas from them and hear like how they got where they are. I can't necessarily work with them because they've got massive teams. I don't have the level of experience that they're looking for, the resume, etc. But I do have value to give to the nano and micro influencers of the world that are looking to kind of grow to the level that those macro influencers have. So talk about, I guess, anxiety as it relates to not being called out for being, fake or phony or imposter syndrome.
I haven't really. I don't relate to that so much. I don't have imposter syndrome. If I struggle with anything, I have to remind myself. Alex Hormozy says we have to be reminded more than we have to be taught. I have to remind myself that I've been doing what I've been doing for so long. And if I keep in mind, okay, Knives from 5 years ago, what did he need? How can I help him? That helps me resolve the imposter syndrome conflict that I may have. Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not an expert, but Gary Vee talks about if you don't feel like you're an expert, be an enthusiast. And I can certainly be an enthusiast.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't struggle with imposter syndrome so much, and luckily the two examples, the two entrepreneurs that I cited have offered some really valuable solutions to that for free. And so that's helped me kind of be able to persevere, but I don't struggle with imposter syndrome so much. And people aren't, I get trolls like everybody, being called neckbeard and being called whatever, whatever. I get trolls, but they don't bother me either. And they're not necessarily calling me out. It's more like somebody hurt them and I'm reminding them of something they don't have, So I have a lot of empathy for the trolls, but yeah, no, I don't struggle with that so much.
Very interesting. I think, but you understand that a lot of people do, right? and that people and where I'm coming from, this is actually a kind of two different directions. There's the content creators who are now reaching out to me that have this, that kind of put me on a pedestal that I don't believe I should be on. Because I'm like thinking to myself, like, I'm not Nick Merckx's or Mr. Beast's or Charlie D'Amelio's manager, right? I'm not that person. I haven't gotten, it takes one content creator to blow up, obviously, to be that person, but I'm not that guy yet. But I have had the opportunity to be in the rooms with those people and meet their managers and get game from their managers that I could apply to other content creators that I just haven't done it. And I just want to say this. It's kind of selfish that I haven't done it because I'm fighting to try and get on my own, right? I'm trying to make money and, giving free game to people. Like, how do you figure that out? I don't know. There's
For me,
sure turn the phrase for that. But
I think it's a mindset thing. I think it's an
yeah,
abundancy versus scarcity thing. If you come
yeah,
from a
definitely.
place of abundance, then you can give that game out for free forever as much as you can. And all
Mhm.
you have to do is just be one step ahead of somebody. You don't have to be Charlie D'Amelio's manager. You just have to be one step ahead on the evolutionary chart of the content creator life cycle. Just be one step ahead. And if you are, and if you can add that value, do that. Solve a person's problem. Can you do that? That's great. It's going to build trust. It's going to build brand. It's good marketing. It's going to be in the future, someone can cite you and say, oh, Trent Knox is a good dude. He did this for me. Let me introduce you to this guy. That's worth it
Mhm.
alone. You know what I mean? So going back to giving without any expectation, if you have something to give, I think you have a responsibility to give it. And I think it's good spiritually. If you believe in, that kind of woo woo stuff, I think it's good karmically to just give.
Yeah.
And then I believe the more you give, the more you'll receive ultimately and on a long enough timeline. But you have to have that abundance mindset.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is where it does actually start going down this geopolitical political thing that I usually do, but it is a feeling. There's a feeling aspect to it, and there's the social validators. I think is that the thing that's most challenging about the imposter syndrome component, because you do a lot of people are playing that game where, oh, you don't have that badge of honor on your resume, so you can't join our group to party in this group because you don't have it, right? A big example of that in the gaming industry is like having in Apex it's like Predator status, right? Or like in Call of Duty it's like being prestiged or whatever. Like, you don't have the prestige to
Yeah,
be in our
let me tell
group,
you something, man. You know
you
how
know?
Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face?
Mhm.
The good news about entrepreneurship is that it is binary. You either
Mhm.
produce results or you don't,
Mhm.
period. So
Yeah.
imagine in the marketplace, it's jujitsu. You're a brown belt. You could probably make a yellow belt or a white belt tap out. So do that. Can a black belt tap you out? Probably. But
Mhm.
you need to focus on iron sharpening, iron getting better. And you're already ahead of other people. It's
Yeah.
your obligation to help people because we're here to add value. We're here to give more than we take. I do think it's binary, and I do think you know there's a sports kind of component to what we do. Stack points on the board. Don't worry
Mhm.
about what LeBron and the Lakers is doing. Worry about what you're doing. You're Steph Curry. Worry about what you're doing right now. Put points on the
Mhm.
board, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't focus on anything else. Concentrate on solving people's problems. Can you solve this person's problem? Yes or no? Can you document the journey? Can you enjoy the process? If you can do
Yeah.
all three of these things, you're gonna win.
Yeah, I think that's true. So anybody who's in any field that is looking to better themselves, putting on the blinders in a way is good. I think it's tough to say when you should have blinders on and when you shouldn't have blinders on. Obviously, if you're in a race and you're a horse and you're betting on horses, you want your horse to have blinders on because you don't want to see them, like, you don't want the horse to be influenced by how far ahead or behind they are in the race. You know, I think that the question that a lot of people have on their mind is how much should you be iron sharp as iron fighting black belts versus iron sharp as iron being the, you know, leader or authority figure for white belts, right? So how many white belts should you be giving black eyes to versus getting your black eyes from black belts?
I think that's a two-part answer, and hopefully the listeners are understanding the metaphors that we're using. I think we need to be elevating others that are poor and disenfranchised and that are lower down the totem pole. We need to elevate others for sure. Giving back, abundance mindset, you know, knowing that our cup runneth over and that we have more love and value to offer for the white belts. And then the second part is go where it's more difficult, go where it's more challenging, go where it's harder, go where you're uncomfortable and get tapped out by black belts to get better. That's how we're going. That's how iron sharpens iron. That's how we're going to stay sharp and then give back and report the findings to the white belts. And translate that to economics, to the marketplace, to digital. Translate that, of course.
How do you find people that are at your same level so that you can collaborate and be, you know, find your tribe?
This is where practicing in public, I think, is the answer, man. You know, if you're doing this and you're auditing and you're surveying, I used to tell Robert Gardner this all the time, poll your audience, poll them. Robert had a more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Who is Robert Gardner?
Robert Gardner Wellness.
For the listeners?
Yeah, who Trent and I have both worked with in some capacity, who's an entrepreneur locally in the massage and physical wellness space. Not really good on the terminology there, but yeah.
Health and wellness.
Health and wellness, absolutely. So I used to tell Robert all the time, like, dude, audit your audience, poll them. You have a tremendous Facebook group. You have patron. You had a massive email list. You had subscribers. You had people that you could be like, hey, what's more that you want to see from me? You know, so Robert, you know, is a practitioner in solving problems in public. He does that very well. And so I think he has a really good finger on the pulse of what his audience wants from him. Whether or not he chooses to deliver is a separate story in and of itself. Me, I'm still building an audience. I don't think I've built an audience yet. Do I have 10,000 followers on TikTok? Do I have 20,000 followers on Instagram? Do I have 600 subscribers on YouTube? Sure. Are those numbers to roll your eyes at or scoff over? Maybe, depending on who you are, but I'm still building that audience. I haven't had that group of rabid hundreds and thousands of people tell me who I should, you know, what I should make, what they want to see from me, ask me to help them, you know, so I can solve those things and create those solutions in public. I'm still building that. And best believe that when that audience is there, you're going to see Knives Monroe be solving those problems in public and recognizing the demo of who these people are. And a lot of them are going to be, because of my niche, they're going to be just like me, or they're going to be a little more like, you know, five years ago me, a little further back on the creator life cycle, and they'll be a little further back. And some of them might be ahead of me as well. I would hope so, right? And those are the people that I choose, that I'm going to want to learn from. But I think building in public and polling your audience in real time is how you discover that.
Yeah, I'm really starting to, you know, with what you just said there, kind of flesh out some ideas of where the fears come from. And, you know, something that I've been thinking a lot about lately is the portfolio. You know, you mentioned Robert Gardner. He's someone who definitely gave me one of my first opportunities to really develop that portfolio. And I often don't know how to position those things in a conversation with um, a black belt, right? I'm not entirely sure whether because to me, I look up them like they're black belts, the people that I worked with previously. But I don't necessarily know in the scale of things, not vanity metrics, but business, how they stack up, because there's all this woo to business. It's like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Can you reinterpret what I'm saying to you right now?
I feel like you're in the middle of saying it, so I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Woo, like just fairy dust, fugazi, like bullshit. There's so much to it that it's like the vanity metrics, the status, the all that stuff. Are they really a black belt? And in my position, is it appropriate for me to say, like, they call themselves medium-sized businesses, but is that equivalent to what I consider a local small business at scale?
There should be like a social proof component to it, right? Like they should, some people, entrepreneurs, they put their numbers out there, right? Like here's how much revenue we generated this month, right? Some people put those numbers out there. That's how you know if they're a black belt or not. I don't want to get stuck in the weeds here, but I do think there's a social proof component, and I think it's worth auditing the people you're following too. Like,
yeah,
I know who I want to learn from. I know what I want to learn with. I know I rarely get duped on who's successful and who's not. And if I get that spider sense feeling, that little tingling of like something's not right here with this creator, I don't fuck with them.
You know why I bring this up? Bring this up because if I'm just getting started, and I'm not just getting started, I've been in the game for a bit now. I know where I was when I first started with Robert. And Robert is a Craigslist client. He is a client that you find on Craigslist, and I've found a number of clients on Craigslist. He's a diamond in the rough, right? Or a piece of gold in the river, right? Versus the large majority of clients on there that are bullshit. Excuse my French. And they position themselves as being black belts, but in reality, they're just yellow belts that have that are looking to social proof way above their weight class, right? So, it's interesting because you would think when you Robert is one of those cliches when it comes to what people think are on a Craigslist platform, right? It's like almost like, oh yeah, the yoga dude, right? But there are more real estate agents, wedding people. Hey, actually, what's going to be interesting in this conversation is to talk about how you approach, opportunity. Is that they just aren't ready to offer, but for whatever reason, and this is something I always, big up you on, you're able to find the opportunity even in the bullshit. You're able to close something where other people may not take that opportunity. I think a lot of the times we talk about people who are like, and I've been a victim of this as well. I just stopped actually looking for these type of opportunities of saying like, I'll only do it for $5,000 or whatever, whereas someone like you is able to go and actually find what is the weird nuance or weird personality trait of this person that's, obstructing them from paying a real wage, but you're able to figure it out and actually get the job done for compensation versus doing it for them for free, right? So it's a challenge, I think, of spotting what is real, what can be made out of fake to be real,
yes,
and in with a result of benefit, something that's gonna give you an opportunity to take one step forward instead of two steps back.
For me, and thank you for that. I think if there's any sort of modicum of success that I've gathered over the last few years, it's because I try to ask what I would deem the right questions. Like I try to ask the right questions with these clients. Like, what business are they in? What are their conversions? How much money do they generate? Do they have a budget for someone like me full time? You know what I mean? Like for them, you and I both know photo, video, podcasts are luxuries. They might not be able to afford that. And if they don't, that's great. Then I'm not for them. But I'm there to kind of tell them, here's what to expect for the next 9, 18 months of, if you want to ever afford someone like me full time, here's what you can do to do that, right? Sometimes entrepreneurs that I find on Craigslist or wherever are more down the life cycle, more down the timeline, and they're more mature and sort of, maybe they're a brown belt or something of that nature, to stick back to that analogy. Um, and sometimes they're not, right? But I'm really good at like cutting through the crap. Let's cut the crap, and like, I'm here to help. I want to help. I have a very specific set of skills and tools, a la taken. I have a very specific particular set of skills. I'm here to give, I'm here to help, I'm here to make money. And if you can facilitate that, great. And if you can't, cool. Let's not waste each other's time, but let's also maintain that relationship where maybe 3 years from now you will be able to. And that's happened too, right? So it's just a matter of like auditing, asking the right questions, knowing what you want to get out of it, and not really having an expectation. I'm not like, is this guy a black belt? Is he going to solve my problems? Can he pull me out of scarcity? And I'm not coming from that regard,
We're at the sort of climax of this podcast here, and once again, I'm talking with Knives Monroe of Indie Darlings, and we're getting to like the actual business now, I feel. And we open it up with a lot of things, a lot of, sizzle type conversation. But if you're listening this far, you're about to get some gems if you're trying to actually get into this business. And I would pick them up and do what you need to do with them in order for you to get your value out of this conversation. And so I personally go from Craigslist into more of the digital marketplaces, right? I go from there to Fiverr, Upwork, freelancer.com, and I start to position my brand as a facilitator of creative work, right? And I start to sell to people on these platforms, and I run into the same sort of situation, even though there's sort of, when you go out and you talk to business professionals, tech people, there's like an elevated level of prestige to that versus Craigslist. Craigslist kind of has this, same as Angie's List or any of these sort of forum websites. There's like, they hold these other like freelancer marketplaces in a higher regard for whatever reason. Maybe it's because they use them regularly, or they're not, like, whatever the case may be. But what I find most challenging there is propositioning your offer of actually defining it and a way that most effectively communicates exactly what you do. How have you developed exactly what you do?
Man, that comes from a fuckload of failures, a fuckload of moments where I wouldn't say I had imposter syndrome, but I said yes to a job and I had no idea how I was going to pull it off, and I pulled it off. I have dozens of those stories where I said yes to a job. I didn't know how I was going to do that, and then I had to force myself to learn a new thing, a new skill. How I've fine-tuned my offer is really about noticing patterns in business. There are, whether if it's a tech company, or just a small person organization, and by small I mean like 50 employees and less. There are problems in each of these organizations that come up, and there are patterns that you can recognize. And I've noticed them in the marketing, content creation side. They usually don't have an in-house team. They usually don't track their analytics. You had mentioned maybe that you didn't track a certain analytic earlier in this conversation, and I thought, man, he better start tracking these things before it's too late. And you answer to yourself, so you can track it whenever you want. But there are some people who answer to the CEO, and what are the metrics that the CEOs want to see? Impressions, right? Like they usually want to see, click-through rate, open,
CTR,
yeah, that's usually what they want to see.
Conversions.
So there's so many problems to solve, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
have created unknowingly, and only recently have I've been able to articulate it through this lens, but I've created systems of content pillars and ways of tracking those impressions and engagements where if we commit, and parenthetically, if you hire me, if we commit to this standard of content creation, it will lead to X, Y, and Z results. And
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of no-brainer situations where you guys know that you need X, Y, and Z. So hire me. That's essentially what it
Mm-hmm.
is. Or hire someone that can do this for you. It's always like you need a podcast, you need commercials, you need a social media presence, you need X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. A lot of these organizations and businesses don't have that. Like content's really like at the end. Some of them don't even have ad spend. Some of them don't even have a marketing budget.
Mm-hmm.
So what are these problems that you can solve for them? And I've noticed patterns throughout my tenure, and it's really like, here are inexpensive ways that you can do it. Go do it. Well, here's what they come up with. Well, can you do it for us? Yeah, sure. Of course. Either pay me full time, pay my day rate, here's what it's going to cost you to
Mm-hmm.
fill in these gaps, right? So I've been able to fine tune that offer through auditing a bunch of businesses, and whether if you're a one person business like a real estate agent, or you're a small tech company, a lot of these problems are ubiquitous and across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my solutions are kind of like, as a consultant, I sort of know what questions to ask, and I know it's like I'm a heart surgeon. Like I know what questions to ask about the heart, and I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
I
yeah,
know what
yeah,
the
yeah,
incisions that I'm going to make every single time, and it gets
yeah, yeah.
repetitive.
Yeah, it's you you noticed something about this podcast is slightly different than I normally do it, and I positioned it as soon as I opened it with the idea that I would be interviewing you versus the normal conversation route that I go down, which is just a bunch of falling action all the way through until the conclusion. It's usually no build up and usually just goes straight to like hardcore shit that you have to deal with, right? So, we had some rising action to this podcast, and we got to a point at which now we've passed the climax and we're going into falling action from here on out. And the thing, and this will only resonate with filmmakers, is one of my favorite movies is Train Spotting. And
I love that movie.
the way that's like, it's not got the Elizabethan storytelling aspect to it. It's constant, just roller coaster, up and down. By the end of the thing, you don't even know like what state of existence you're in or where you are, and
Right.
I enjoy that. And where was I leading with Danny Boyle? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I had this point, but anyway, go ahead.
No,
Take
no.
over while I think about the point.
Train spotting. This was like going to be a framing for filmmakers. You said this was more for the filmmakers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where you were going with that, but falling action.
Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna sort of preface that we're gonna be getting into Chat GPT. We're gonna be getting into like creative works and where the future is in a segment here upcoming. But I'm trying to think of where I was going at with this idea of yeah, I definitely forgot.
It'll come back to you. It'll come back.
Forward. We'll move forward now into the segment about ChatGPT. Welcome to the real world, where you built this concept of I'm gonna be a filmmaker. I'm gonna go out there and work for Hollywood. That's what it was. Got it. As a host and as a curator, I positioned it as being very traditional. I entered into the conversation in a very Q&A, ask a question, answer, ask a question, answer. And this is going to be more the Joe Rogan style towards the end here.
Sure.
In the aspect of it being like, I looked at the numbers of who shit the top Fox reporter hit 4.3 million concurrent viewership or something like that, highest of all time. What's his name? Oh my god, why is it blanking on me? I just had it in my head. Now I forgot it. And this is the building here. What's his name? Tucker Carlson, right? Biggest or I think Sean Hannity was the number one host of all time, and then it became recently Tucker Carlson. The internet doesn't even come close to that. 2.5 or 6 million. Gref G, no, that's wrong. Gref G was 2.6 million. Then I can't remember what the other number was. It's slightly the same number, but that's over the course of one live broadcast, right? So the internet has a lot of maturing to do to catch up with 4.3 million concurrent viewers of that show every single night, right? And the Super Bowl, I don't know what that is, but it's comparable to like an Apple event, right? An Apple release event. Where do you think this is going? I don't want to get into ChatGPT yet, but where do you think it's going with like building audience around an individual person, live and direct?
I think artists are businesses. Artists like me are going to have their own CEOs, their own COOs, their own chief revenue officers, their own secretaries. Artists like me. Look at Mr. Beast. Is everyone going to be Mr. Beast? Fuck no. But that model is going to be templatized, and it's going to disrupt old media even more than it already is. So I see that happening in the future. I see a rise in solopreneurship. I see a rise in one-person businesses. I see a rise in productizing ourselves as brands, as one-person brands, essentially. So I do see that as the short-term future. Where it goes in 40 years, I don't know. But where I'm going to spend the next 10 years of my career is going to be productizing, systematizing, marketing myself as a one-person business under Indie Darlings or as Knives Monroe as an entity, whichever, they're ubiquitous, and not necessarily needing to quote you, to be a slave, a wage slave,
Okay, yeah.
and working for a corporation. I might be able to bypass that and work for myself. And I think that's, it's already the present. Like, people are already doing that. YouTubers are already doing that. Twitch streamers are already doing that. Influencers and UGC creators at the highest level are doing it. So it's happening, but I see them having employees like the D'Amelios, etc., where that it's going to really grow around that.
Man, I really struggle to understand my audience, because I feel like there's an aspect of my audience that wants a very structured, like traditional storytelling model, but then I get this impression that they also want this this kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but like not conspiratorial, not necessarily, but like just brass tacks. But if I do that, then it kind of like alienates the other component of the audience, because okay, yeah, I did the whole traditional route of being going the Hollywood route, that direction. I failed at the Hollywood direction because I had an underlying kind of belief system of my own doesn't really work in that system, right? Because I thought I had a chance, but that system, the game is already solved over there. They know exactly who they're gonna let become popular. They know exactly what the timeline is gonna look like, and if you want the timeline to go any faster, well, sorry, tough luck. That's not happening, right? Unless you immense capital to spend in order to get yourself on like that. It's interesting though, because the internet, comparatively to over the air broadcasting, is not as developed. People don't have the free access to information that over the air does. Over the air, if you get on there, you can pretty much get to anybody, right? As long as they have bunny ears and some component. But you got to play by the rules, right? You got to play by the is it FCA?
FCC?
FCC. You got to play by the FCC's rules, right? And I don't, and this is an example. Even just mentioning that you got to play by the FCC rules is like parenthetical to their game. Because if you even make a statement that there's a big there's some sort of nanny state to it, it becomes like like you're a black sheep. You're not permitted to play in this arena unless you're playing in the arena of horror productions. Then it's like, oh, that's a slightly different ecosystem, right? So yeah, talk to me about like legacy media compared to new media.
I just think that what I see is someone who has gotten over on legacy media, say a star from the 80s, and when they go on Instagram, they have like 20 people that are watching their Instagram live.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that says a lot. That says that necessarily the audience from old media doesn't necessarily transfer over to new media. In a way, man, I cannot help but feel sometimes that we're already in the metaverse, and everything that exists outside of the digital, virtual interior space, it's just fodder to be, what's the word? It's just fodder to be smuggled into the digital interior space. In other words,
Can I pause you there?
The internet is more real than the outside world. Is kind of how it feels sometimes. Yeah.
I want to pause you there and ask you if it's possible to do that. From everything that I see thus far, I think that it's impossible to do. I think it's, we see Hulu, we see, the actual studios attempting to like digitize their catalog and create this world where programmatic plays out in that nature, and that there's an aspect of in programmatic television we have reruns, which they re-air the same content over. That's why Forrest Gump, Shawshank Redemption, I'm just talking about all Tom Hanks movies as well, are consistently in syndication, right? Is there any what's the word I'm looking for? Consistency, I guess, in the new media space as far as syndication goes, and sort of kind of holding your audience, a captive audience, on an individual piece of content or within a network?
I think one of the things that, I don't think I understand your question, but if I do, I think one of the things that is a large differentiator with new media is it's always about what's the new thing. What's the new thing? Wednesday, the Netflix show is not going to be syndicated per se, right? But there's going to be a season 2, and in the interim, there's going to be 900 different new things that fucking matter, right? So the thing about the internet, whether if you're like, say, I want to stay on the subject of like one-person businesses and YouTubers and one-person brands, they have to be creating new things every single day, every single week. There's no syndication per se. You can repurpose your content and cross-pollinate it on different platforms where not everyone's going to see something the day it drops. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, like everybody's main pillar, I'm not going to I suppose I could, republish a podcast that I had recorded 3-4 years ago. Sure. But outside of that, like there really is no syndication.
Man, you say that, and I almost had had a like a brain melt when I saw a post come across my feed of an agency that said, "Let us teach you how to repurpose the your influencer content." And I thought, what in the world? How does that even make any sense whatsoever? Now I get memes repurpose, but if you have, are you? I just I don't see brands doing this because if you shoot a commercial with, I don't know, Kevin Hart, for Chase, right?
Yeah.
And you, and it's dated. It has a specific timestamp to the jokes. It has a specific timestamp to what Kevin Hart looked at the time. Are you? Are they really gonna repurpose that content and make it in a fresh new way? The only way I see that possible is if the wool starts to get pulled over us as consumers' eyes as far as who or what Kevin Hart is.
You can have like the same piece of content and then change the hook, and it'll yield completely different results. So maybe that's what they
Right.
mean. Changing the
It's
hook,
possible.
adding a CTA, adding music, creating a whoosh sound, little things to change like the first X, Y, and Z sort of components that are variables that can make your video go from 2,000 views to 2 million views. You can repurpose
Mm-hmm.
that way, right? You see it all the time where someone creates something on TikTok and then excuse me, they change the hook and then they put it on Reels and it crushes, right? So that
Mm-hmm.
and that way it's worth educating influencers on how to repurpose their shit.
Wow. I heard that and I was thinking how there are activities in our lives that teach us lessons um on what you will do in your career that are they're not necessarily directly correlated. And in the South, we understand these things, I think, more than those that grew up in metropolitan cities in New York and and Los Angeles, because or in the in and around those areas, because they're kind of maybe too close to the sun in some ways, and these truisms like you're saying, like fishing is, I feel like, an activity that's like kind of closely knit to the culture of Southerners compared to a lot of the technology driven Silicon Valley world. Now I'm not saying there aren't these anomalies or things that happen in that space, but there's trends to like how children are being raised in different communities. And so baiting the hook, I feel like, is something that a lot of these tech platform people are not considering when they build out how the end user is going to use the platform, right? And so if you're if you're someone who hasn't gotten over in those areas and doesn't have like the nuance to like to like hack in a way yourself to success, it's probably because you weren't raised right. Am I off there? Do you think there's truisms to that
Oh
of
man,
just
you're
like growing up in the wrong place?
sure. I don't know. You're losing me here, man. I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Well, you don't use you know you don't use a
What's your main idea or what's your question here?
well, you need different hooks for different fish,
Uh huh.
right? You have saltwater fish, freshwater fish. You don't use the same type of hooks
Okay.
in each environment. And so um I think a lot of those marketers out there are using the same hook
Uh huh.
constantly for fish that are in the wrong, they're fishing in the wrong pools,
Okay.
I'm trying to cut to the chase here without using,
Yeah, I
you know,
understand what you're talking about
different
now.
things.
For sure, I
Yeah.
understand what you're talking about now. Yeah.
And
Um,
so my thing is like
I think there's like I have a list of hooks
Yeah.
So to speak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Say there's like 10 hooks. You can take one topic for your audience and drop bait on 10 different hooks, spread it across and schedule it throughout the next couple of months and see which ones you get a bite from a big fish with,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that's what businesses need to do is use all 12 hooks and 12 different ponds and see which one works and then scale that.
Yeah, and I know why this is. I am probably talking out of turn, and for those fishermen out there who are just complete experts, and they're like on National Geographic channel, and they're like, oh yeah, we know the terms and stuff like that. You know, this bobber versus that bobber, whatever weight, all that shit. And they're like, they apply that principle in life to the content that they create, which is why they're successful in their fishing channel or their whatever they're doing, right? And the translation, this is where I guess we can kind of like use that type of content, that niche, as a bridge to talk about the traditional person, because I feel like you worked with a traditional media star and then was able to work with them and convert them over into a content creator influencer, right? And you mentioned Dakota earlier in the podcast. What were some of the challenges in that process? Were there things that you had to kind of untrain with him so that you could understand the arena he was playing in?
If I'm being very honest, the biggest challenges were it was a new frontier for me. I was
Mm-hmm.
learning on the job.
Mm-hmm.
If I worked with him now, I think I could take his YouTube to 1 million subscribers in 6
Mm-hmm.
months. If I was
Mm-hmm.
working with him now, I think I'd be able to really hone in on his podcast even better now because I know I've created and have learned these systems that work behind the scenes. Instead, it was spraying and praying. We were making content to make content to check the boxes. And boy, is that like so embarrassing now to look back on. The challenge was not having the right strategies, not having the right tactics behind the podcast, behind his YouTube. I think now his YouTube, don't quote me, but I think it sits like at 50 subs, 50,000, 50K. And I'm happy to be partly responsible for that, creating hundreds of videos for his brand. But we didn't know what we were doing. It was like to and the responsibility fell on me, and I kind of feel like I failed at that. So like the biggest challenges was my immaturity and my lack of experience of really knowing what was going to work and what was not going to work and what was more worth our time than others. There were other challenges there that I'm not going to talk about, but as far as like my own personal accountability, that was, I want to take accountability for that. I didn't know so much what the fuck I was doing.
Do you think those principles? I mean, he's not he's a reality TV star, so we should like definitely put that in context. Do you think those principles are true to any reality TV star? Because
Which,
I've been seeing a
which
lot of
principles?
the actually I shouldn't say the principles. I think the deliverables, the things that you would do for him today, are those true to any reality TV star? That you could make you could be the breakout moment for any reality TV star that comes to the content creator world?
Two things. So amongst to be a reality TV star is pretty uncommon. To be a Medal of Honor recipient that happens to be on a reality TV, and he was on that reality TV show for like a year. So
Mm-hmm.
for the past like 6 years, I wouldn't say like that is like the core pillar that defined him, you know? Having said that, just to answer your question, if I don't think a lot of reality TV stars are like, I don't think a lot of them are actually talented. They're platformed, so now they could monetize their now brand, but a lot of them don't think like that, right? So, could you do it? I think so. And if it didn't work, it would be their fault because they don't have that sort of map of where they want to take their career, right? But Dakota was way more than just being on Teen Mom. Like, he was way more than that. He was already platformed when Barack Obama put that medal on him. That's when he was platformed, right? So that's like what he was
Well, I mean,
known for.
more towards the boomer and Gen Xers than it would be the millennials and the Gen Zers.
This guy
Uh,
also, so I used to work with Hiring Our Heroes, the nonprofit organization, and this guy went on every military base where there were Marines and would speak to them, and I would document these engagements. And he was speaking to the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds that already knew who he was, because he was a legend in that space.
yeah, in that space, yeah.
In that space. So it wasn't just the boomers. Was there a lot of them that are grandfathered in that respect, war heroes? Of course, but there was a lot of people our generation and the young up and coming military kids is really what they are, that had that respect for him as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
we're in the
no
weeds.
deniability,
We're in the weeds here.
No. And we're not. And the reason why I say we're not is because I want to be specific to that. That's a very specific thing, and that's true to a lot of different people. Even this fishermen. Fishermen think they're like the big man in their thing, right? That's their thing, right? And it's not going to translate to someone who doesn't care about fishing, right? You're going to have to get that specific audience and reach that individual who is going to like desire to watch more fishing content, right? And I think it can be overdone. Like I think a case in point would be Andrew Tate, right? That's where he went from reality TV stardom to being the most Googled man on Earth, then to being, now the poster child for human trafficking, right? So a lot of effort went into that. There was probably a person like yourself, not like you necessarily, but a person with the same character, or not characteristics, the same skill set there. Thank you. Not the same mindset or characteristics, but same skill set, boosting up him to be the star that he became. So there's an underdoing it and overdoing it component of it, of all of it. I've ran into reality TV stars who went on to create live streams and went on to create Instagram reels and whatnot along my journey, and thought, wow, there's a lot of reality TV stars that are crossing over into content creation that are at, like you said, only like like you or I, right? They're not really seeing the crossover of the audience of traditional media into the space of social media. I just said social media. I've been trying to avoid saying that. What I mean is online new media. Social media is the dominant form of new media, though, right now, and that's unfortunate, because if you're in business, social media is almost counterintuitive to your brand, because
I don't think so. I super disagree with that.
I mean, but Andrew Tate is one of those examples of the system just not, turning against you once you have the.
It wasn't the system that turned them against.
That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it was the system that turned itself against him. I don't think it was that. I think it was his own actions. And
if they don't like what you say, they can just shadow ban you, block you, not permit you terms of service, etc. And I've seen it happen, and it's one of the reasons why Ninja is seen in a negative light, because he left Twitch and went to go to Mixer, and then now he's back, and like they don't want to give him the same notoriety and deal because he took a better deal somewhere else. And then it's like he got, well, when that happened, they put porn on his website, and it completely for a while it tarnished his brand, so like the platforms are not looking out for your best interests. So if you are someone who's in business and creating your own brand, you got to be real careful what those platforms will do. I mean, look at the Twitter files. Like Twitter intentionally disrupted the elections. Like social media is it's you either pro social media or you're ambivalent, or there's a lot of different perspectives. You know, it's again, it goes back to the 60 40 80 20 10 90 10 conversation.
Yeah, we agree to disagree.
I don't think you're really saying anything. So I just
dude, I agree to disagree with this. Like, it's not something I go against it, what you're saying, you know. You want to fight about it? We can fight about it.
I think kind of argue about it a little bit. I think
if you're a business,
yeah,
your audience is going to be on these platforms.
Yeah.
Done.
And when the time comes that the platforms turn against you,
you have to remember that Facebook is free, Instagram is free, Twitter, YouTube, all these things are free. And you can say no because you're putting in your information and so you're the product, whatever. My point is I don't pay for YouTube. I don't pay for the bandwidth.
Right.
So the ROI that I'm getting out of YouTube is exceptional. And then once I get monetized, they're going to split 50-50 the AdSense with me. That's amazing. Like, you can't get a better deal fucking anywhere. You know, Facebook.
Anyone runs the risk, though, before you get to that level of them cutting you off.
Dude, if you're a fucking dumbass piece of shit like Andrew Tate and you get cut off, I don't feel sorry for you. That's what you get.
Well, he's not. He's a large example, right? So he got cut off.
You brought him up as an example.
At the very end.
If you're a liar, like...
Yeah, you're missing the point.
Like Frog Guy, what's his name? Alex Jones. If you're a fucking liar who's being sued for $1 billion right now, who's going to have to pay that, you get deplatformed. It takes a lot for you to get deplatformed.
No, it doesn't. I disagree with that.
It takes a lot.
No, I disagree with that. No, it doesn't.
Name me one person where they got deplatformed for nothing.
I regularly see people.
Name one person.
Okay, one person. On YouTube or Twitch, or what platform do you want to know?
Pick one.
On Twitch, regularly streamers are being banned for content that they should not be banned for. I would say Asmongold regularly gets banned for content that he shouldn't be banned for his position on life.
Hassan gets banned. You're either banned or you're not banned. How does someone get regularly
banned for financial interests? Advertisers don't like what they say on the platform, so they terminate and ban their account.
That's the game. That's the game. If you go out and you show your boob on the Super Bowl halftime show, you don't get invited back. That's the game. You don't get deplatformed or whatever. Like, maybe Janet Jackson, extra. Maybe she never recovered after that, but you know what I mean? Like, you pay the price.
Well, yeah, that's true, but that's not disagreeing with what I have to say. Like, I don't think you're disagreeing at all.
What I'm saying is, you said you're either pro social media or you're anti social media. I suppose then I'm pro social media because I don't pay for any of this stuff, and they're distribution platforms. That's absolutely amazing. That's incredible ROI. And if you're building an audience, I do also believe in deplatforming them and putting them on your website, putting them through your funnel, right? Putting them through your podcast, whatever pillar that you have that's like your main core operating pillar. Like, I do believe in that, because when Facebook is down and Twitter and TikTok and YouTube are down, you want to be able to have that email list to be able to have that community still up and going, right? So I'm all for that, but I'm going to build that audience on TikTok. I didn't build it, I didn't create it, and it's done more for me than I could probably ever do for that platform. And if I start saying the wrong shit and I get deplatformed, that's my fucking fault.
Yeah, and I think that the fear, the risk aspect of what is really what I'm talking about. I don't know if you're following along with what I'm saying or getting the point.
Dude, you can get kicked out of college for saying the wrong thing. You can get kicked out of fucking Kmart for saying the wrong thing.
That's the thing that people fear the most at this state right now.
Who fears that?
Most people.
Who's most people? Our moms? Who is
humans?
Most people?
Human beings. Most people. Everyone. Pull as many people as you possibly can that are creating content.
They fear what?
They fear that the money that they're getting from the platform, if they're at the state of money, or even before they get money, that they lose the opportunity to pay for their cost of living, that they lose the opportunity because someone that's in power doesn't like what they have to say.
They
That they
fe-
go against the mainstream
they
narrative,
fear
and then they don't. Then the
everybody.
mainstream narrative becomes that slavery was okay. That
You're saying
that it's
everybody fears being demonetized and being deplatformed? Everybody?
yeah. If you pulled the majority, most of content creators, they fear that they're getting that there's a risk of being deplatformed based on what they have to say. If there's someone in power just dislikes what they have to say, that they'll get deplatformed. Whether that be Jordan Peterson, whether that be Eric Weinstein, any of the so-called intellectual dark web, including a Joe Rogan, whether that be more of the people that you're talking about, Andrew Tate, Alex Jones, Sam Tripoli,
Are you
any of the
afraid of being
conspiracy
deplatformed for
theories
saying something?
people. Yeah, of course. And I will definitely say this,
I am not.
where I like the conversation where we've been going, where you deplatform by creating your own brand and then utilizing those other things that are free to market with the opportunity to siphon audience off of those platforms to your own website. That's the whole point of branding and then monetizing your own audience, because you don't have ownership over the audience that's on YouTube or other places,
You don't
right?
own those platforms. You don't call the shots. But I own my website and I call the shots.
Unless you're in power, right? So for a long time, Alex Jones, Andrew Tate had an emphasis in power within the YouTube headquarters, enough to be like, don't ban me.
Does this pain point like really impact your business and impact you solving problems? Like, does it really impact like your money making?
Yeah, it does in the B2B sense, because if you start doing deals with content creators that become adverse to the platform and you're doing deals on platform, then your whole marketing spend could just disappear overnight without you even knowing or having control over what they say or what the platform deems as inappropriate
That's
to
the
say.
game. Adult Swim just fired Justin
Yay!
Roiland. Just
I'm
fired Justin
putting
Roiland for these allegations of domestic abuse. Da 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 da. And they just fired him. Now that is a IP. Rick and Morty is a giant IP. Now that they have this guy did the voices for every character on the show. Now they got to hire a new person to do that. You know, like that happens at that level. That's old media. It happens. That's the fucking game. There's no.
Well, I'm giving the game. Here's the game. I'm giving the game out. Right? I'm shining light on the reality of the world that, you know, a lot of content creators that are actively playing the game understand, but people who are just getting started don't understand because they just can't see behind the curtain. They don't see the Wizard of Oz. And so, I mean, maybe if this is the conclusion of it, like, here's the game that you don't know about, that we're all playing as content creators, that one day we might get deplatformed based on something that we have that we say.
Dude,
And
you could be at a barbecue and get kicked out of the house for saying the wrong thing. You can go to a bar and light up a stogie and get kicked out because that goes against the da 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 da. Like no shoot, no shirt, no service, right? Like depending on like the house rules, right? You can get kicked out of a fucking casino in Vegas if you show up naked, right? Like, you know, or maybe if you show up with no shoes, you can get kicked out. If you start lighting up a big fat blunt, you can get kicked out, right? You can get deplatformed from the Mirage or wherever, you know. That's the game.
Are you if you were in a position where someone that you knew was getting deplatformed, would you run to their defense?
I have.
And why did you do that?
Because this person told me I'm being falsely accused. All these people are liars. I did not do what they said that I did. And this person was my friend. And I said, okay, what do you need from me? And I invited them on my podcast and we talked about it.
And what were the results?
I think the results were this person was able to create in public again after a while.
How
After
long did it take?
I think they were like in the dark for a few years, and obviously crazy episodes of depression and feeling like maybe that they'll never that their art was taken away from them, and maybe they'll never be able to make something ever again and build an audience and have that trust ever again. And I'm not saying that them coming on my show had anything to do with the latter. I just think with time there's healing, and I think being on my platform did help the public. I think it did help that more than it hurt, for sure. And I came with it with the best intentions. But to be fair, the opposite has happened, where someone was accused of something and I cut ties with that motherfucker too. Where I'm like,
Mhm.
nope, I believe the victims here and I don't want to be associated with you. So both things have happened in my life multiple times.
Do you think that you've ever been in a scenario where um, that someone was being shadow banned or that their reach was being limited without them being privy to that
Oh, dude, I
information?
mean, pre YouTube, man. Like, I mean, pre YouTube. The old school days of YouTube, people were getting banned and shadow banned all the time and creating new accounts, and then that account would get banned, and I would see it all the time. I knew this one guy on YouTube. I don't mind saying this. I used to follow him. He was funny. Dude, he got banned after like his 10th channel being banned. He just started jacking off on YouTube, and then he'd get banned. He
Mm.
just stopped caring. He eventually, yeah. I mean, this guy created so many different accounts. Like, I know that he got shadow banned, and before he got shadow banned, he got banned. I mean, after he got shadow banned, he got banned. This type of
Mm.
conversation that isn't like doesn't really do it for me. I know you're fascinated by it, so I'm happy to indulge. But
Well, the listeners are fascinated by it. That's why I said like there's two different types of audiences that I have. The ones that want to know how to avoid being in these situations, you know, and it's not just
here's my rule.
being
Here's my
like
rule. Here's how you avoid being in those
goody
situations.
two shoes. It's
Don't
not
be a
just being a
cunt.
goody two shoes.
Don't be a cunt, and don't spam, and you probably be okay. And maybe
Yeah,
don't lie.
those are two truths I think are true. I think there's more
Don't
to it than
lie.
just that, but
Don't be a cunt, and don't spam. You should be fine.
you could be fine. Yeah. I think that the fear component of content creators just getting started is immense, and the
I had
possibility
no
that
idea that
no
people were so
views
afraid.
happen.
I had no idea that people were like so afraid.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you hear
Oh,
Gary Vee in Q&A, should I make content? How's my presentation? Am I professional enough? What if someone doesn't like what I have to say? These are questions he constantly gets. He's the one who's like most
I suppose that is fear based. Yeah, yeah. I guess so. I guess it is.
yeah, so that there's just an immense amount of fear of missing out and fear of being ostracized, right? And if you get uh you like I think a lot of people are afraid that their small family or friend group is going to, abandon them based on the content. It's like something they did digitally, similar to how you said, like if you go into a bar, or I guess the easiest thing to say is if you go into a theater screaming fire, right? You're going to get banned, right? That's the trope, right?
Yeah.
Um so I think for me, I've gotten locked out of my Facebook. I mean, we were just talking about an account that you got locked out of, which was I gotta be
I
honest
think
though.
somebody was trying
This
to.
energy
I
is a
think.
lot heavier
I think somebody was
to,
trying to
to
hack
deal
into
with
my Google.
that.
I think somebody was trying to
Yeah.
hack into my Google, but because I had account recovery and two-form authentication, I think that's what saved me. I think somebody was trying to hack into my shit. I really do.
Do you think that there's? I mean, this is why conspiracy always is something that I have to ask the question. Do you think that might have been something internal? That maybe someone didn't like what you had to say, or doesn't like the way that you present it.
I don't know, and I don't care. Like I don't know. Dude, there are tons of reasons why someone would want to do that. One of those reasons could be very poor mental health. Either
Mhm.
way, I don't know, and I'm really indifferent to it because my shit needs to be protected. Best believe I updated all my passwords and made it like as gridlocked as I possibly could. Um,
So if YouTube
my
goes
first
away
thought,
tomorrow,
my first three thoughts wasn't, did I say something wrong? No, it wasn't.
no, of course not. But if YouTube goes away tomorrow, you'd be doing what with your video? We go to Vimeo or Rumble, or what would you do with your video?
I would just double down on shorts,
You can't get how YouTube's gone.
TikTok Reels,
Oh,
Facebook Reels,
TikTok. Gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha.
Vimeo, yeah.
I think that's very interesting. Um,
My own website.
Who's like the most successful person who's gone from YouTube to TikTok and replatform themselves on something else?
YouTube
I guess,
to TikTok.
yeah.
That's a hard jump. I don't know off the top of my head because everybody that I engage with on TikTok started on TikTok, and it's very rare that someone on TikTok can transition to YouTube and get like over 100K subs. It's really rare. I've seen it happen. But from the other way, from YouTube to TikTok, probably
TikTok to
me.
YouTube.
I'm the
YouTube to
closest
TikTok.
person I can think of that like I got more views in 1 month than I did 12 years on YouTube on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah. Like TikTok definitely did a lot of good for you. That's for certain. And now you're playing the YouTube game. And man, the truth is like people don't really understand there's a game that they don't hear enough. I don't think they hear enough. At least maybe this is not in my algorithm as a consumer enough, that YouTube, any form of social media, is the social media slot machine. You pull the lever, but the content you put in, and you get what the algorithm says that you'll get out of it. Whether you win or not, I guess, is the simple way to say it. What is the formula for you? More, less? What formula do you think is right?
What's
is
working
it different
for me?
For everyone?
What's working for me is posting every day on YouTube. That's working for me. I have 3 big videos a week that are like actually like this, like this right here. Whether that's a podcast or an actual, high value video utilizing YouTube search, so people actually find it and the algorithm will actually boost it. And by boost it, I mean it gets on people's recommended pages, right? Which when you judge the analytics, you're able to kind of eventually notice these patterns. Oh, if I talk about this, if I position my intro this way, it's more inclined to get like on the YouTube recommended. So I've been trying to do that and iterate. The best way to iterate is by doing it every single day. And then on the days where I'm not uploading those big videos, I upload shorts. And that's been really, really helping. I created what I call the CES, this content effort scale. And I believe the effort that you put into a video will actually yield more positive return. And so I have a checklist similarly to how pilots have a checklist that they have to hit every single time they take a plane up into the air. And that's, if I have a podcast, there also needs to be a video that comes from underneath that, a tweet or a thread that comes from underneath that, a blog, a vertical short that comes from that podcast, Instagram story, and need to create pre-CTA content, post-CTA content, pre-CTA being, hey, tomorrow I'm dropping a podcast. I'm going to talk with Trent Knox. We talked about these 3 bulleted things. Check it out tomorrow. The post-CTA is, hey, in case you missed it, here's a clip. Trent and I talked about X, Y, and Z. Here's what you can get out of it. There's a photo that can come out of this main pillar content. There's thumbnail, there's description, copy. I used to phone a lot of this shit in. I used to make a YouTube video and then be like, oh shit, I need a thumbnail. I guess I'll add a big red arrow to it and then just ship it, publish it. But there's also a pre-script, titles, hooks, B-roll, music, intro, outro, lower thirds. I phone a lot of content in, but I created this content effort scale where if you check all these boxes, And if you create a piece of content that is 10 out of 10, you checked all the boxes of what I just listed below, that those videos, that content's going to do better for you than just winging it is, right? So that's been my methodology. That's been my systems. That I'm implementing. That I've been able to see that I've grown 200 subs in the past 30 days. That's fucking sick. Like someone told me it's harder to get from 0 to 500 than it is 500 to 1,000, and I've been seeing that because there's a compounding effect about posting every day. Not everyone's going to see that thing the day you uploaded it. They'll see it when they search it 30 days later, right? So that's how I've been playing the YouTube game and putting that effort in. Where I've noticed I get more retention if I add music, if I add B-roll, if I have an intro, outro, if I position my intro, if I pre-write it, if I create a good thumbnail, if I put that concerted effort being the
Yeah.
operative word here. If I put that effort,
Yeah.
it yields a far more positive result.
Man, I just want to kind of highlight some things. Like, I have a lot of respect for Knives Monroe, and I only want to challenge him on certain things because he'll throw a harder right hook, either just be silent or like be
Well, because
aggressive
I'm
towards.
listening. I'm always listening to you, dude. Like I'm listening. You're painting a picture, and I'm like, and I'm also trying to find like what can I add to that. But if I vehemently like disagree with something, I just think it's better to not poke the bear. But if you want me to poke the bear, I'll poke the bear.
I do, because I think that too many liberals and people who consider themselves left wing don't do their studies or their own research on right wing topics. They fail to do it, therefore they're ignorant. And I don't think that's true of you. I think you do your research. I think that maybe your research is kind of more left leaning when you come to a conclusion. But I do present things that people are very apathetic to. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not apathetic to it. They have like a animosity towards it. Like when I mentioned Sean Hannity being the largest, previously the largest, broadcaster, and then now it's Tucker Carlson. People are more conservative
Yeah, before
than the
that
world thinks.
it was that Bill guy, Bill O'Reilly. Before that, it was fucking Rush Limbaugh and so on and so forth. I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, like I don't care. Like I don't
Well,
care if the
you
facts are the
you don't.
facts, is what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Like I don't care.
yeah. You don't care. Obviously, you're knowing you personally. You're not a heavy consumer of media. You're more of a producer than you are a consumer, and so like your opinions aren't necessarily jaded by other by the what's popular to do, which is
Also,
why I
sometimes I don't
actually.
believe in like having an opinion. Like I don't think an
Mhm.
opinion is like an end all be all. Like when I can just Google the fact. So I don't think about what I don't
That's
need to
really
think about.
that's trouble. I mean, it's hard to see what the facts are these days, even if
It's
you
like
Google
saying
it.
Knives. What do you think is the highest grossing movie of the past 10 years? I don't, it doesn't matter what the fuck I think. How about we just Google the answer? Like, you know what I
There
mean?
are
Like,
some truths to that. There are
yeah,
some truths to
that's
that.
just, that's where I come from.
Yeah, there are a lot of truths to that, and it's the I definitely talk about these subjects in context of content, and don't generally get into things unless I'm on a different show of like the nuances of actual policies or anything like that. But
You had mentioned an hour ago that that the show had reached its climax, and I disagree. I feel like the climax was 20 minutes ago where I said, "Don't be a cunt, don't lie," and whatever else I saed of like, don't how to not get shadow banned and don't spam, right? Like I think that was the climax because I was pretty hot.
it's yeah, I think it is. I think in a lot of ways, that's true. I think people will find their climax in the content wherever they find their climax, and I think that's true. Um,
And
that
as we're building
that
the plane, as we're flying it, I will say, so far this is probably the best pod that you and I have done in a long time as well. So I'll throw
why
that
do you,
out there.
let me ask you this. It's almost seems like
I hope that's
um
not like a backhanded compliment. I'm just having fun.
yeah, but no, I'm not. This is less that. But why is the audience generally gravitate towards the more controversial components of the conversation rather than the gems of what they can actually do in their life to make a difference and not get shadow banned. But when it's the controversy, oh, Knives and Trent are arguing, that's the best part. It's the sensationalism. It's the, it's the sizzle. It's the, like, that's what people want to hear. And I
people like drama.
cannot do that
People like
throughout
drama.
this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw, like, I am just not going to be the person to, like, just say things that you completely disagree with the whole time, because it doesn't put either of us in good light, right? But I am going to point out certain things that people are thinking, like the global consciousness of issues that people are really, like, they just either don't see it from both sides, because I'm probably more left leaning than I'm right leaning, in the sense that I'm not hard set in stone on new ideas being presented that would completely alter my beliefs in conservatism or liberalism or whatever the case may be. Like things being overly dramatized, right? So let's get into ChatGPT. How does AI solve those issues? How does AI analyze before you post a piece of content, whether it's going to put you in Facebook jail or put you in YouTube jail or something like that, and just be like, hey, don't post this content? But because they think, they have a tap into.
Yeah, I asked ChatGPT
what?
recently. I said, oh, can you write me a bulleted list of why videographers fail? And I thought, oh, this is great, because I'm going to be talking about pain points and I can make a video about that. And ChatGPT's response was, whoa, slow down there, Buster. I don't think like in negatives like that. Like, we're not going to be talking about negatives. So ask me a different question. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So it really only wants to keep it positive. So for those that are like super afraid of just the concept of ChatGPT and, machine learning AI or whatever, like doesn't that like absolve some sort of like concern? Is that it didn't even want to talk about failure in that regard. Yeah. Now I reframed the question in a way of like, I'm writing a video. Here's the topic. I'm looking for pain points. Write me a list of pain points. And it was like, oh, here's a list of pain points, right? So like, you have to, that's what I love about ChatGPT, is that it helps me think more systematically, more like a machine, which I like and appreciate, because I can synthesize my otherwise human failings and brain droppings into a structure and format and framework in a way that is just more clear to what it is I'm trying to get across. I like it for that. So I think our listeners, they know what ChatGPT is, but if you don't, I suggest you do your research, check it out, and you let me know, follow up with me to see if this is a solution for your business.
Yeah. I'm left of center from my perspective, and someone left of me would probably say I'm right of center, but I'm left of center to where, like, I've had no issues with ChatGPT. Like, I hear a lot of right-wing people say, like, it's jaded, it's biased, like, it'll tell you a full story about Joe Biden, but ask anything about Donald Trump. Oh, Donald Trump's a banned character, can't talk about it, no positives about Donald Trump. Very bizarre, but doesn't really offend me. I'm just like, I'm left to center. I don't really care neither less what the reality is. I just think that it's really important, like you mentioned. I don't like the idea that you have to rephrase your shit to get the real shit. Like, that just seems really dumb. Like, it should be able to, like, just tell you after your initial prompt and decipher that you're not, asking it to create child pornography. Like, it's just really clear what's bad and what's not bad to me. But that's, I don't know how these systems decide where is bad and not. And that was sort of like, why I kind of get frustrated. And maybe you're further left than me, and like when you're like, oh, that's right, that's wrong, So I don't know. It's real challenging. It's real challenging to, like, and that's the game. You're right when you say that. So that's the climax. The climax for sure was when you said, that's the game. That's the game. And I was like, God, we gave the audience the game. Because that's why I think I think that's
Dude, on that note, breaking news.
breaking news.
Breaking news. I logged into Chat GPT. I just used it
Oh yeah,
yesterday. This wasn't there, and now
the subscription service.
it's yeah, you can upgrade your plan $20 a month.
I don't know what that means.
Priority access to new features, which means you get to
Yeah.
use stuff first. Faster response speed, and available even when demand is high.
Yeah. One of us has to subscribe to it to tell us what the new features are. Or we just wait till someone pays for it online. That's what you need. You need someone to tell you what are the new features. Should I subscribe this
I
month?
will be subscribing. I will be subscribing. Is $20 a lot to me? Yeah, it is. Am I going to have to cancel a few things to make it worth it? Yeah, I think so. Because I'm pinching pennies here. I'm trying to lower my overhead.
Yeah.
But $20 a month is very, very worth it. $20 a month is $120 a year. That's nothing. No, that's not true. $240 a year.
Do you think Twitter could implement a similar feature into their Twitter Blue?
Well, you would think, right? You would think it could do that. You would think it should be able to do that because of Elon. But I don't know if it's going to.
Would you give up Twitter Blue for Chat GPT?
That's a great question. Yeah. And I think I will.
Yeah, I don't use Twitter enough.
Because Twitter Blue is now charging me $12 a month. It was $7. Now it's $12. Very sneaky, sis. I see what you're doing, Elon.
Did you subscribe on your iPhone?
I did.
You might want to cancel that and do it on the computer because you're also paying the fees to Apple.
Fucking A. That's awesome.
The game. I give him the game.
You gave him the game, man. One of the, I know it's like probably the least favorite podcast you've ever done with me. There's that one episode in 2019 called "The Games Beyond the Game."
Oh yeah, that was pretty rough.
But this is like a part 2 of that.
Is it?
Could be.
I would definitely think so. I mean, like, we've got so many different parts, of course, because we've done each other's shows now a number of different times. You're definitely my recurring guest if we're you're my Eddie Bravo in some ways.
You're my Eddie Bravo.
Okay, you're right. Yeah, I'm your Eddie Bravo to you, George Rogan, and then you're what will be the equivalent.
I'm like your Red Band or something.
Not Red Band. Red Band's pretty right leaning. But there's an aspect of
funny to my hardcore liberal friends. I'm the most right leaning.
No, you are. You're right leaning for liberals.
Oh yeah.
You're a little left leaning from me though. I think for sure.
Yeah.
I think that what's going to be. So you didn't really answer the question.
With ChatGPT?
Well, how is AI going to, alert you that you've said something wrong or?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that. I know that ChatGPT already does it, and it tells you, "Hey, I don't like." It phrased it, and I pulled it up to quote it.
Oh, I guess you did kind of answer it.
Yeah, of course I did. I pulled it up to quote like the pain point thing, and I'm trying to find. Here's what it said. I'm sorry, but I asked it, write me a list of 5 reasons why videographers will fail in 2023. I'm sorry, but I cannot generate a list of reasons for failure as it goes against my principles of being optimistic and solution focused. It's important for individuals and businesses to have a growth mindset and strive for success rather than expecting failure. However, I can provide a list of challenges that videographers may face in 2023. So it still gave me an answer, but it had to reframe it. And I appreciate that the AI has principles. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have principles, but it's been principled.
Yes. I appreciate the principles of the company of OpenAI.
Yeah, I do as well. I haven't had any issues with OpenAI. Don't ban me.
Keep it that way.
Yeah.
Don't spam, don't lie, and don't be a cunt. You should be fine.
Well, what's valuable is it's like your own relationship, really. You know what I mean? So it's not public. I mean, I'm sure somebody's logs on ChatGPT should definitely not be publicized. You know what I mean?
I'm sure.
When I talk to the general public about these AIs, they're like, "Oh, you use it to sext, or you use it to like
Mm.
talk dirty." Like that's what people that are not content creators is the impression that I get from them. It's like they're using it for weird reasons, like that are like kind of gray, and it's like, I don't know if you should be doing that, but it's not my place to say what you do in your behind closed doors. And I'm sure there's a lot of that since it's a one-on-one relationship. What do you this AI in general? What do you think it's gonna do to content? Like the
I
next tool,
I
you know we've been talking about Google's new thing.
I would love for there to be this is an AI, but I would love to take the editing out of what we do. That'd be really cool. I don't think that's AI so much as it is something else, but if I could tell a machine, um, here's this video, take jump cuts out where there's dead air, and it does it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that'd be amazing. Or here's a video, edit 5 30-second segments of what you consider are like the most high valuable shorts, and it does it for me. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a 2-person video just like this. Cut to the speaker when they're talking. Do that for me. That'd be fucking great. Little
Yep.
things like that. I would love if, and it's probably going to be DaVinci Resolve, the one that figures this out. Yeah, that would be absolutely amazing, and take some grunt work out of editing, because a lot of like the easy things that we take for granted are actually monotonous, like, fairly time consuming when it comes to editing. To make something look really effortless and clean, it just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't know if you got my message, but I gotta pee. Like, we gotta end this.
Well, I guess it's a great time to end this, unless you want to go take a break and come back.
No, I actually
That's like a Rogan thing.
I have a film shoot at 12, and it's
Let's
already
cut this.
12:30. So
You have
I'm
a
late.
film shoot at 12?
A photo shoot. Yeah.
Oh, photo shoot. I got you. All right, man.
This was an
Plug your shit.
all-timer. I thought this was great.
Plug your shit.
IndieDarlings.net, Knives Monroe, and all the things. Subscribe to Indie Darlings on YouTube. Visit IndieDarlings.net. There are free 40 cinematic LUTs that you can just download. You don't even have to put your email in. If you want to get 20 ideas to productize yourself and create 20 streams of revenue, that's on my website for free as well. Free PDF designed just for you. And if you ever want to ask me an inquiry, go to indiedarlings.net, ask me anything, and I'd love to talk about it. So that's where I'm at. Trent, thank you so much for this opportunity, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we did it.
How do they download your manifesto and your CES?
The CES, I just wrote it out in my big journal right here. So I need to translate this on Canva, essentially, is what I need to do. So I'm working on that. The manifesto was done, but I'm rewriting it to make it shorter so it fits on one page. That's really important to me for some reason. So be on the lookout for that. If you're hearing this sometimes in the future, visit indiedarlings.net, and I promise you it's there by now.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Knives, for coming on the show. And for the audience, thank you for listening, and anything that's Trent Knox related, TrentKnox.com. And we will catch you on the next broadcast.